Now to our debate for the City Council at Large race. It is a citywide election that decides the leadership of the New Orleans City Council, which is the legislative branch of the city government. Now, on October 14th, voters will elect 2 at-large members of the council. And tonight, over the next hour, we're giving you a chance to hear from the candidates running for those posts. There are 2 elections for the 2 seats in Division 1 and Division 2. So we're going to divide our program into about 30 minutes tonight for each race. And we begin with the 3 candidates for the Division 1 at-large seat: Joseph Bouie, a Democrat; Kenneth Cutno, who is also a Democrat; and Helena Moreno, who is also a Democrat. And we have partnered with the Committee for a Better New Orleans to produce this forum. And some of the questions tonight were developed in partnership with them. Now, in this round, candidates will have 1 minute to answer, and we will allow time for follow-ups or any rebuttals if those are necessary. And the candidates will hear this sound. There it is, to let them know when their time is up. So thank you all so much for being here. We are going to get right to the first question. Now, once again this week, New Orleans drainage problems were very visible with major street flooding in several areas. Now, Mayor Landrieu is said to be considering a stormwater management fee to fund drainage improvements. Now, that would have to be approved by voters and placed on the ballot by the council. So the question, would you be in favor of that fee? And if not, what would you propose to raise revenue for the Sewerage and Water Board and Department of Public Works, which both handle drainage? And Mr. Bouie, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I would not consider initially as a priority a stormwater fee. I would be more inclined to look at whether, first of all, we are spending actually the monies we actually are assigning to Sewerage and Water Board. I also know that we have other funds that could be available that we're perhaps not using. I also would like to look at the rededication of some taxes to see if we can in fact fund that as well. For instance, the $50 million and $229 million surplus that the convention center has. We need to look at rededicating some funds. So before we fee, tax, do anything on citizens anymore, let's look to see whether we're spending monies properly that we presently have in the budget.
All right, Mr. Cutno.
Well, my first priority would be to request a spreadsheet of the books to see where's the people money going. $158 billion went through the Sewage and Water Board. To raise any more money upon the residents would be totally against it. I believe the people cannot afford any additional fees at this time. But what we really need to do is look at the money that's already in the budget to see if we can redirect those funds to the appropriate area and not look at charging the citizen. Under this Mayor Mitch Landrieu administration, it has cost the citizen an extra $1,000 a year in fees. So I don't think the citizen can afford any more fees from this administration.
And when you say that there might be areas in the budget where that money would be available, specifically, what might you look at? Until
I get to see the spreadsheet and see where the allocation of the funds has been and what happened to all the money, is unable to make that determination right now.
All right, Ms. Moreno.
So first of all, this whole Sewerage and Water Board situation is a complete public safety crisis that we're dealing with in the city of New Orleans. The drainage fees they're certainly something that we need to consider. But before we do that, we need a true just forensic audit to figure out what all went wrong over the past, and not even just recently, but over the past really years and years. And then we need a master plan as to what is the best way to move forward. Once we have this master plan, I think that's the appropriate time to put the drainage fees on the table. I will say this, one thing about the drainage fees is that they would be very fair. Everyone would actually have to pay, whether you're a school, a nonprofit, or whatever, everyone would have to pay, and that would make it fair. But I can't have the people of New Orleans deal with the fee at this point until they actually know a plan of best way to move forward.
All right. Well, thank you all, and we will move on to question 2. As we know, raising revenue is not the only problem for the Sewerage and Water Board. Many would also question the level of oversight over the board and its operations. Now, up until 2014, city council members did serve on the board, but because of changes passed by the legislature, they no longer do. So as a council member, what changes would you make to ensure oversight of the board and its operations? And Mr. Cutno, we'll start with you.
Well, first, let me remind you that our state representatives voted to remove the council member off the board. My plan is to merge the Department of Public Works with the Department of Sewage and Water Board and combine them as one. Eliminate the board completely and just have one agency under the control of City Hall. and then find someone with the skills and qualification to manage that department appropriately. It is totally unheard of for us to suffer the way we have been suffering. People have lost their cars, their homes, their businesses because of a lack of leadership, a lack of management. And this administration has definitely been wrong for the community and for the people of the city of New Orleans. So naturally, I would try to merge those two departments, put it under City Hall, and at the same time put the council members back on the board to oversee the program.
All right, Ms. Moreno.
So one of the things that we've certainly learned is that these problems at Sewerage and Water Board are not new. They persisted even when there were two council people sitting on that particular board. There's several things happening with the Sewerage and Water Board. There's a lack of transparency, accountability, and oversight. So first, let's start with transparency. Let's move the Sewerage and Water Board meetings to council chambers where they're easily accessible to people, and people who may be at work or at home with their kids can watch on TV. At the same time, we should have weekly reports coming from Sewerage and Water Board to let us know what's happening with our pumping stations, so that this week when that whole situation happened, Channel 4 wouldn't be sitting there going, what's happening with Sewerage and Water Board? We haven't heard from them. There would be a report available that would say, as of this week, everything seems to be working fine. But then at the same time, that's when we move forward towards this master plan. What is the best way to move forward with Sewerage and Water Board? Put all options on the table, including moving all of Sewerage and Water Board under the control of City Hall.
Now, as we mentioned, the state reps did vote on removing them from the board. Why was that, and what do you think about that decision?
Sure. Well, that particular decision was supposed to create additional accountability. It was a good government type of measure. And remember, it also went through a vote of the City Council and also through a vote of the people. You know, but once again, we have seen that the problems at the Sewerage and Water Board were persistent even when there were two council members sitting there. And that's why, at the end of the day, the best type of oversight is creating oversight by the people. So open it all up. Let's have Sewerage and Water Board meetings at council chambers. Let's be more transparent. Let's let people really know what is happening so that we have a full understanding of the situation.
All right, and Mr. Bouie, was that something that you voted on as well?
No, actually, I was not in the legislature at that time, but Ms. Moreno was and did vote for that. You know, I find it odd that we talk about accountability, but for the legislature, legislators of New Orleans to actually compromise accountability is sort of hypocrisy, if you will, simply because the council members were the only mechanism of accountability for the public. So clearly we should not have removed the council from the operational functions. However, even though we did that, we still had a regulatory responsibility. So the council started to drop the ball because we could have done some service agreements that said to Sewage and Water Board management, how many drains have you cleaned? How many baits and so forth? This month, if you haven't done them, why not? So we still had an opportunity to do it. In terms of the governance piece, though, there are several pieces we should look at. One, we could look at a public-private partnership because the private part of that partnership could provide the funding necessary to truly bring our water system up to par. We could also look at partnering with the federal government to expand the SEALA project, the Southeastern Louisiana Drainage Project.
All right, got the ding. We're going to leave that one there. And of course, flooding has ranked very highly on issues that are most important to voters in a recent poll that we did with the New Orleans Advocate. But crime, still the #1 issue. Funding for the NOPD is one of the main functions of the council through the budget process. The 2018 budget puts funding for NOPD at more than $150 million, which is the highest amount ever. Yet there is still a struggle to hire and retain officers. So what is one specific area or idea that you have to boost manpower? And we'll start with you.
Sure. I have several, so I'm going to just make it really brief, I guess. But overall, what we lack is an overall plan and benchmarks being set. We talk about, you know, different ideas or whatever, but there's, once again, no real plan being put out there, no benchmarks, and the people of this city are being kept in the dark. So I'd like to have quarterly meetings before the City Council with all of our law enforcement leadership to let us know what this crime plan is, what are the benchmarks, what is happening with manpower. But at the end of the day, yes, there needs to be better coordination among all of our law enforcement agencies in the city. We've got a sheriff's department, levee board police, all of the different university police departments. We should all be working towards one public safety goal, and at the same time also start putting in as many civilians as possible into the precincts so that we can put real officers out on the street doing the job that they want to do, which is keeping us safe.
All right, and Mr. Bouie?
Yes, unfortunately we have a singular perspective for addressing our crime problem. One of the things I want to bring to the table is that this is a multifaceted approach. For instance, policing is one part of it, but the other part is why folk have a need to commit crimes in the first place. We must understand that what we consider the crime problem are really symptoms of the true problems. Things like lack of economic opportunity, lack of employment, dysfunctional education system. We must address both cause and symptom. One of the things we can do with the police department is we could have civilians trained to handle the office work. That is, we would free up those officers to actually do some police work. The other thing we can do is use more technology to do that as well. So there are a couple of pieces we can do to actually facilitate an effective policing, but to truly deal with the crime problem, we got to deal with the causes and not just the symptoms.
All right, and Mr. Cutno, how would you boost manpower?
Well, our crime problem is the problem of poverty, lack of jobs and lack of opportunity. My goal will be to try to create more jobs. If we create more jobs, we could decrease crime by 60%. We could solve the blighted property, which is also part of the crime. One of the proposals I would like to see is to merge the New Orleans Public Park Division, which is our meter maid, with the New Orleans Police Department and let them be our community policing. Another thing I would like to see is enter into a contract with the Sheriff Department so while we train officers to become full-time on the New Orleans Police Department. We have 20,000 African-American males unemployed. Let's tap into those resources and identify the ones who are able to become our police officers and train them and give them opportunity to have the job. It's best that we put the same people from the community in the community to work with the community and the people in the community because they grew up in that community, they know the people, instead of trying to
You can wrap up your thought.
Instead of trying to import people from out of the state, and let's use our local people for jobs.
All right, thank you all for that. All right, the next question is from our partners at the Committee for a Better New Orleans. The current city budget process remains opaque and confusing to most residents, and it was made even more so this year. Yet how the city spends its residents' money is the most important decision it makes and one of the most important functions of the council. So what will you do to make the city budget process more accessible to and more inclusive of city residents? Mr. Bouie.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to see is a floating budget meeting process. Many of our citizens don't have the capacity to get to City Hall, and that was attempted somewhat by the last administration, but I attended a few of those and found it to be too structured, if you will. That is, the administration came in and said, here is what we do, da-da-da-da-da, had a few of the department heads say something. It didn't afford an opportunity for citizens to ask questions or to have input, nor to have specific issues addressed relative to the budget. We need a floating, if you will, budget committee process, as well as an opportunity to have citizens actually have some real meaningful input in questioning of the budget itself.
And when you were at that meeting, is that something that citizens expressed to you?
Actually, I saw citizens actually be kind of frustrated because they didn't have the opportunity to do that. They get sort of like a 30 seconds to say something, and they say you refer to the department head and talk to that person. That's really not the kind of interactive process that citizens should have. And
Mr. Cutno?
More citizen participation is needed. We need to have town hall meetings. We need to go to the citizen. We need to use technology. This is the age of technology. There are many ways to communicate the budget to the different people. If they're not able to use the computer, well, let's go to the community and have town hall meetings and explain it to the people, the process, each and every budget. And then let's identify the programs that the people would like to see funded in that budget for the people and focus on in that area by doing town hall meetings, community meetings, churches, community centers, senior centers.
Well, and I think we have seen, a little bit of apathy towards people getting involved in the process. How do you inspire people to get more involved?
Well, people no longer trust this government, and that's the problem. When we have to be able to build the trust back into the people. And I believe the only way we're going to do that is by reforming our government, by eliminating some of the career politicians, the establishment, the political machine, and give the people a chance to have this trust once again. And once we build that trust, I believe people will be more involved and be more engaged in the process.
All right, and the question again, how do we make city government more inclusive to city residents?
once again, it all just goes down to transparency and customer service. I mean, let's just take the budget process for example. At the end of the day, you have a budget document that's like 600 pages long. It's online. If you're going to try to print it out, good luck, because it's probably going to break your printer. If you're trying to search for something specifically, it's really hard to find. If you're trying to find how much money is going towards affordable housing or how much money is going to the NIF or whatever. Let's just break it down. Let's just make it transparent. Let's show people that actually we're spending $0 from the meter maids and from traffic cameras, et cetera, going to streets. None of that money is going to streets. People are often surprised to hear that. Let's just put the information out there, make it easy to break down how much money is going to streets. People ask that all the time. It's only about $6 million. How much money is going to law enforcement? How much money is going to community policing? Make it easy for folks. Look, putting a budget document online that's 600 and something pages long is not easy for anybody to use. So we just need to be more user-friendly at City Hall.
All right. Well, another big issue, short-term rentals, obviously, in the city. Now, our WWL-TV advocate poll out this week showed mixed opinions about short-term rentals. It was pretty evenly split, with 43% favoring short-term rentals and 41% of people opposed to them. Now, the council passed an ordinance last year setting limits on short-term rentals in certain parts of the city and banning them in the French Quarter, but enforcement, of course, does remain a concern. So would you have voted for the ordinance as written, or what specific change would you propose to the current system? And Mr. Cutno, we'll start with you.
No, I would have not. I think it's wrong to motel our neighborhoods. I believe that the hotel should house our tourists and not our community. I also feel like it's a public safety issue for the elderly and young families in the community, not knowing who is living next door to them or what group may come in that neighborhood that week. So no, I would never ever supported this type of issue. Now for the homeowner, I do support that part of it, you know, for the homeowner who's trying to earn extra income to pay for their college education or to pay for the taxes on the brand new house that they're trying to pay. But as far as investors and realtors and developers and apartment complexes, no, I have never ever allowed that type of program to enter into the neighborhoods of the community of our citizens in the city of New Orleans.
And Ms. Moreno?
So here's the issue that I have regarding STR, short-term rentals. So I don't think, you know, if you poll it, not too many people are going to have an issue with somebody who is short-term renting their other side of their double or their back house, that particular property. Where there is concern and where I have concern are out-of-town LLCs, not even from just outside New Orleans, maybe in the state of Louisiana, but I mean outside the state, LLCs that are buying up different whole homes or whole properties in our city. They have no vested ownership in the city of New Orleans, but to make money out of these STRs. And that is a problem because look, if it's, you know, somebody within the city of New Orleans and you may have a whole home that you're renting, well, at least, you know, let's say if you have one, Natalie, well, it's your reputation that if something's going on with that particular short-term rental, they know who you are, they know where to find you. Your reputation is at stake if something's going wrong with that. If you're some out-of-state company, well, we're never going to find you. You don't really care if someone's bashing your property because you're just there to make money, and that's where I have concerns. All right,
Mr. Bouie, what do you think?
It is too broad and too wide, and we compromise protecting the residents' ability to have affordable housing. There is only one part of the short-term rental I would perhaps embrace, and that's the one that talks about accessory, where individuals live in their home and may rent out a room. Other than that, you really just open it up for folk to abuse that opportunity as well as negate the responsibility of taking care of housing for our residents.
All right. Well, now we are going to move on. We're almost to the end of our time. Time flies. We're going to go to a little bit of a lightning round. These next three questions are just yes or no. That's all we're looking for. So the first one, are you in favor of privatizing the Sewerage and Water Board? We'll start on this end.
No.
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 All right, 3 no's. There will be a measure on the November ballot to create a rainy day fund of about $27 million for the city to use in emergencies. Would you vote for that, yes or no? And we'll start in the middle.
Yes.
With the caveat that it should not be, quote, just a 5%, which is what was proposed. I think we should look at it based on what other fiscal needs we have.
So that's a maybe.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with a maybe too, because I just worry that we restrict ourselves too much if we create a rainy day fund, and then you know, it just causes more problems. Remember too, with a rainy day fund, once you use it, you have to replenish it that next year. So if we have a couple years with significant issues, the rainy day fund could be problematic. So a maybe.
All righty. And should Chief Michael Harrison be replaced as the leader of the NOPD by the next mayor?
I think he should be given a chance, but allowed to actually run the department without micromanagement from the mayor.
The chief is doing a wonderful job, but it's the mayor that is doing the micromanagement, that is destroying the morale of the police officer. And I believe with his actions involved, it's the reason why we're having so many problems with our police department. It's not the chief of police, it's the mayor of the city of New Orleans.
All right, so is that a no?
I say he's doing a wonderful job.
All right. What's the question one more time?
All right, the question again, should Chief Michael Harrison be replaced as leader of the NOPD by the new mayor?
Look, I think that he has been doing the best job under the circumstances, but at the end of the day, you know, I think it's probably best to open it up to all candidates, and he may be the best one who comes off on top.
Okay, now these ones are letter grades, so we're looking for a letter grade on the next few responses. So how would you grade the performance of Mayor Mitch Landrieu? We'll start on this end.
I've been asked this question before, and to be fair, I will give him an incomplete because he still has several months left on his term.
All right.
With 20,000 unemployed African-American males in this city, the mayor has not done a very good job in trying to address those issues.
Letter grade?
F.
F.
A C.
A C. All right. What about the current city council, Mr. Cutno?
Our council members is trying to do the best that they can under the guidance and the leadership that they have.
And the grade is?
The grade is a B.
Okay.
C.
Yeah, I'll give him a B minus.
B minus. All right. And finally, District Attorney Leon Cannizzaro.
What about him?
What is the letter grade that you would give his performance?
Oh, gosh. You know, I have been so disappointed with the situation regarding, you know, jailing victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And that, to me, really brought his grade down. So I'm going to give him like a C minus.
Okay.
Based upon his actions lately, he deserves a D.
Misuse of subpoenas and some other issues that are clearly of great concern, the D.
All right. All right, so we are going to give everyone 45 seconds to wrap up, a little closing statement, and Ms. Moreno, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Natalie. I appreciated the opportunity to be here today. I'm running for the New Orleans City Council because I want to finally tackle those big issues that are facing us every single day. I want to improve all of our quality of life here in the city of New Orleans. I'm sick of hearing that New Orleans is a difficult city to live in. At the end of the day, it's about providing the basic services to the people of the city, the basic services that the taxpayers deserve. I've had a record in the legislature of moving forward very difficult agendas and getting things done, and that's the type of leadership we need to move our city in the right direction. I'm Helena Moreno, number 52 on the ballot, and I ask for your vote.
All right, Mr. Cutno.
I am a graduate of Samuel J. Green, Walter L. Cohen, and Southern University. I have 30 years of government experience as the Chief Probation Officer for Central Parish Juvenile Court, the Governor's Office Intergovernmental Relations, Deputy Director of Elderly Affairs for the City of Boston, and the Community Development Project Manager for the Housing Authority in the City of New Orleans to develop the St. Thomas. I put together a $360 million housing development, a $50 million retail development in that Chapatula area, which is today is over $1 billion economic development. I'm the only candidate that has created jobs, brought in new taxes, created affordable housing, and I have done more than the two state representatives combined in those areas.
All right, and Mr. Bouie.
Yeah, as a native son, I've dedicated some 40+ years of public service to this community in various areas of leadership, including substance abuse treatment programs, 38 years in post-secondary education as a professor of social work and chancellor of Southern University at New Orleans, and my present leadership role in the legislature. I'm chairman of the Legislative Black Caucus, full leader for the governor, did legislation, the original legislation to bring our original schools back. I'm interested in council at a large position because we are a tale of two cities, one in which one part of the community is doing extremely well, the other is barely surviving. I'm the only professional change agent here who has the knowledge, skills, of community problem solving to be able to build the coalitions, work with those other district council persons, the mayor, and the community to truly address what is the problems of our city.
All right, Mr. Bouie, thank you, and thank you to all three of our candidates.